Hey guys, this is God of Politics. We'll go to a brand new video, but before we get started this video, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Also follow me on Twitter and join the Discord. Those are both linked down in the description. But in today's video, as promised, I will be talking about the Virginia gubernatorial election. I'll also be talking about the House of Delegates election in the state legislature, of course, and that is going to be a very interesting race as well, possibly even more interesting and even closer than the gubernatorial race. But the main event, of course, is the gubernatorial race, and I will be talking a lot about that. And I will start by talking about the 2020 election in the state of Virginia, in which Joe Biden did very well. He won the state by just over 10 percentage points here. Of course, Mark Warner and Tim Kaine both also won by more than 10 percentage points, and Ralph Northam in 2017 won by just under 9 percentage points. Of course, there is a term limit in the state of Virginia, so Ralph Northam cannot run again. So in this race, we've got Terry McAuliffe versus Glenn Youngkin. Terry McAuliffe for the Democrats, Glenn Youngkin for the Republicans. Now, I've showed those races that are good for Democrats because there have been some races that haven't been as good for Democrats, but that hasn't happened in quite a while. Virginia is, of course, a state that has trended towards the Democratic Party recently. This is a state that Democrats have had a pretty good hold on for many years now, although they did just flip the House of Delegates back in 2019. So, of course, those are Republican gerrymanders, but still, Republicans, still have had some success in this state. And I do believe that there is a good chance that we will see some more of this success in this election. Now, is that a given? No. Is that the most likely outcome? I would also say no, but it is certainly a possibility, because if we go back here to 2013, this was the year that was pretty good for the Republican Party, but at the time we had Terry McAuliffe, who won this race by 2.5 percentage points. Now, of course, you can say anything about the Libertarian candidate spoiling or whatever, but the fact of the matter is that Terry McAuliffe won this race, and then it is a very interesting race, especially when you compare some of these trends. If you look at Fairfax County, for example, Terry McAuliffe got 58% of the vote. We compare that to the 2020 election, we can see that in Fairfax, Joe Biden got almost 70% of the vote here. So very interesting trends. We can also see that these rural areas here are not as Republican as they are nowadays. That's a trend that we're seeing across the country. I think everyone watching this knows that. But looking ahead to the 2021 election, it could produce some very interesting results, because as I just pointed out, Republicans have done worse in the suburbs and better in rural areas, but Glenn Youngkin hasn't really embraced that kind of Trump style, Trump wing of the Republican Party, if you will, and he's kind of, walked on that fine line between embracing Trump too much, that you alienate people in a state that Trump didn't do well in, while also at the same time doing well enough with that core base, being able to turn them out, convincing them that you're a conservative and that you're going to fight for, the things that they believe in. So Glenn Youngkin has really done well in that regard. Of course, in the primary, he had to win amongst many different people, but he did end up winning decisively, and that is very notable, of course. But we look at these polling averages here, we can see on RCP it does have Glenn Youngkin actually ahead right now by 0.6 percentage points, and that probably really is a testament to the work that Glenn Youngkin has done to walk on that fine line between embracing Trump, being a bad thing, of course, and turning out the base. And so it's very interesting to see this. Now, while the polls do have Glenn Youngkin winning, they also had this race much closer in 2017 than it turned out to be. So polls here have not universally overestimated the Republicans. If anything, they've overestimated the Democrats more than they haven't. Of course, you can look at the 538 average, you can look at individual polls, but the fact of the matter is that we shouldn't assume that these polls are going to be accurate. I do think that more or less they'll be accurate, but when we look at a poll, for example, like Fox News's, that shows that Glenn Youngkin's up by 8 points, we really just have to throw these in the trash. When we look at a poll, like one of the polls we had the other day that showed Youngkin up by a few points, I think it was this one over here, that showed him up by a few points, showed, the third-party candidate Princess Blanding with 20% of the 18 to 34-year-old vote. So you really have to deep dive into these polls and look at, a lot of this more niche stuff that wouldn't really be noticed on the surface level. And when you see that these polls aren't really very good. Now, could they turn out to be right? Of course they could turn out to be right, but I think that they'll be a few points off. And now I'm just going to say my prediction right here. My prediction with this county map is Terry McAuliffe plus 3 percentage points. Now, Of course, I could be wrong about this, like I've been wrong about predictions before, and like I've been right about predictions before. Terry McAuliffe is certainly not the best candidate. I think we're seeing that now in the way he's running his campaign, but Glenn Youngkin's also a good candidate. Of course, Biden's also not very popular here, so you have a lot of moving factors going on, but I think considering it all, I think that Terry McAuliffe is going to win by around 3 percentage points. Now, could I see a Glenn Youngkin victory? Yes, I could see a Glenn Youngkin victory. However, I don't think that it's that likely. I just cannot see it at this point. That would be a 10-point trend from the 2020 presidential election and almost a 9-point trend from the 2017 gubernatorial election. That is going to take a lot of work. And despite a lot of these factors going well for Republicans, I just don't think that they're going to win this race at the end of the day. Now, I do think that McAuliffe is going to have a very, very narrow race, and I do consider 3% narrow because, of course, there is a margin of error with these kind of things. Could be, 1 to 5%, could be a Youngkin victory. We don't really know. But as I said, considering all these things, I think that Terry McAuliffe is going to win by around 3%. A narrow victory, but a decisive victory. And I think that we may not know this on the election night. We may see some of these results showing that Glenn Youngkin's winning. We may see some of these conflicting results. As I saw a couple weeks ago, they said Fairfax is going to be reporting their mail-in results first as opposed to what it was in the 2020 election, where Donald Trump actually had a lead in the state of Virginia up until I think maybe even about midnight, maybe even later than that. So Virginia is going to be a very interesting state. Now, I wouldn't put too much stock based on that. I wouldn't put too much stock into what the results are looking like at, say, 10 o'clock on election night. It's going to take a while to count these votes. It's going to take a while to process these things, and we're not going to know a winner probably on election night. I don't think we're going to know a winner, and that is a testament to how competitive this race really is, but also, of course, it's a changing nature of these elections with mail-in ballots, things like that. It's going to take a while to process these results, but overall, considering everything, I think that McAuliffe wins by about 3 percentage points here. And we are looking at this early vote. I think many people have seen this. We have 1.142 million votes so far, and it is estimated that Terry McAuliffe has around a 300,000 vote lead, give or take about 50,000. Maybe it's around 250 to 300,000. But anyways, it seems like Glenn Youngkin's going to need turnout of about 1.8 million and about a 58 to 42 split. Those numbers are very rough, of course, but it looks like Glenn Youngkin's going to have to do really, really well on election day if he actually wants to win this race. I do think that he's going to do well, a lot better than Trump, a lot better than Republicans have done here in the past, but I don't think that he's going to win. As for the Attorney General and Lieutenant Governor races, I think that the Democrats will also win those by just a little bit more than what Terry McAuliffe is winning them by. Now, as for the Virginia House of Delegates races, I do have Democrats winning 51 seats, Republicans winning 49. Now, of course, these are the same lines that have been in place for a very long time. Since 2011, I believe, they weren't able to do redistricting due to the delayed census data. And so we're still using maps that I believe are Republican gerrymanders unless a court struck them down. But I think that was the state Senate, not the state House. I think that's pretty clear looking at these districts here. But I do think that Democrats will still win a majority, but it's going to be a very, very narrow majority. I do think that the Republicans will flip one of these seats here in the D.C. suburbs. I think they'll also flip the 12th district over here. There's a scandal with the Democratic candidate. Early voting doesn't look too good. This is an area that's trending blue overall, I would say. Or trending red, I should say, especially with this rural county over here, but it is gerrymandered, so when they make the new map, that probably will end up being a Democratic district. And then these two Virginia Beach area districts over here, I do think are also going to flip to the Republicans. Now, the closest districts, I think, are going to be this blue district over here, this flipping red district over here, this district up in the Nova area, this district down here, the two districts flipping here. We may have one that's very close in the Richmond area, and a few more that are close in the Nova area. But overall, I think that Democrats are going to hold on to their majority, but it is going to be very, very, very narrow. That is in part because the Democrats are just doing worse, and that is also in part due to the fact that These maps are Republican gerrymanders. If they weren't Republican gerrymanders, you'd have an easy safety seat here. You'd have, a few more Democratic seats over here. You'd have maybe one or two more in the Virginia suburbs. But overall, I do think the Democrats will still win a majority here. You've got a lot of seats, 100 in total. But overall, I do think that the Democrats will win a 51-49 majority in the state House, the House of Delegates. I think that Terry McAuliffe will win by 3 percentage points, and I think the Democrats will also win both the lieutenant governor and the attorney general races. So, anyways, guys, thank you all for watching this video. Please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Also, follow me on Twitter and join the Discord. Those are both linked down in the description. But again, guys, thank you all for watching this video, and I will see you guys later.